All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is having a very good weekend. I decided to let the news rack up a little bit and do a news report this weekend instead of yesterday, just because I felt as though there was going to be more unraveling details pertaining to some incidences and events that we covered in the last 48 hours, and I took a bit of a chance, turned out to be correct, and so therefore we have a lot of news coming from all over the world today. So let's jump right into it. So first off, Derek Chauvin, the officer who killed George Floyd, as they say, got 22 and a half years in prison. Now, again, it's pretty evident. There's a lot of people that think that the actual murder itself did not happen. With that being said, under the presumption, for the sake of this conversation, that it did happen, I mean, when we take a look, again, it's pretty blatant, I guess, unless I'm missing context, but it's pretty blatant as to what happened, right? So I've discussed this many times before. I don't think there's really anything else that I could contribute to this case other than the fact that, look, if it's pretty simple. You murder somebody, you do time, right? So, I mean, again, there's a lot of debate as to, the defense. Mr. Chauvin's defense was arguing very preposterous things. Others say that that's not the case, that, there were certain technicalities that maybe the jury ignored deliberately and things like that, which is, again, a little bit tough for me to report on when I'm trying to take an unbiased stance. With that being said, though, I think ultimately, look, to me, it's pretty simple. Assuming the murder happened, if he murdered him, you gotta do time. You know what I mean? So, again, that's where I stand, right? Regardless of color, to be honest with you. I know that's a big thing in America, more so than other parts of the world. So that it is also a big issue in other parts of the world as well, but in this particular case, with it going down and happening in the States, that's a very prevalent issue pertaining to this case, and so that is the decision. I don't know in terms of what the reactions were like. I'll be honest with you, folks. I must admit, on a personal level, I see when I hear George Floyd, it's like when I hear COVID. I've just heard so much of it. It's no disrespect to Mr. Floyd or anybody within that situation. It's just I don't really follow up on the stories anymore because I've just read so much of it. I just want to sit back, let it all rack up, and then I'll take a look at it 6 months from now or something like that, right? The next thing is that Israel has reimposed a mask mandate after infections are surging, even though they are currently in the top 2 most mRNA vaccinated countries in the planet, and I also think they're in the top 3 or top 2 most vaccinated countries overall, regardless of the vaccine. It's just they're the most vaccinated in terms of who got both shots, right? With that being said, look, if they want to close down their country again, let them do it, and I will be reporting later on in this report about a mysterious infection that is spreading throughout Israel as well. So, look, folks, I don't, at this point, I don't know what to say. You know that you all know I don't really like to report on COVID too much unless I really need to. It's interesting that there is now this mysterious viral infection. There's also, this black fungus going around in India. At this point, folks, I give up in the sense of I don't want to even try to figure out what the hell it is. Who knows? Is it, some type of power faction of the world disseminating another type of infection within certain countries of the planet on purpose to mix in with COVID? Like, I don't know. This is the thing. And I don't think anyone else does know. And even those within intelligence, probably don't know because they're hearing different reports depending on their sources. So again, we're never really going to find out. And if we do, I would be very surprised. And even then, we got to question it, right? We got to trust but verify like we do here. So the next thing is that many of you have been asking me, Dave, did you read the UFO report? Yes. I think I'd initially thought it was something like 6 or 7 pages. I think it was 9 if you include the cover page or whatever. But basically it was inconclusive, and now apparently U.S. Navy and Air Force are told to report these incidences, but again, it was nothing. Pardon my English, it was jack shit, right? So with that being said, depending on what you think of the gentleman, which is Mr. Lou Elizondo, he made a statement, I believe, early this morning or late last night saying this is one of many UFO reports to come, so don't necessarily, get down because this wasn't anything, I guess you could say, massive or revealing, right? With that being said, if you take a look at the UFO Twitter community or the online UFO community in general, there are many people that are arguing very strongly that this report is, a step in the right direction, if you will. And I mean, look, in pure theory, yes, but in reality, come on. We know what's going on here. Like, I'm not saying, tell us everything, but give us more than this. right? So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, as I'm sure many of you already know. And members, I've put the UFO report in the Telegram chat, so you can click that link pretty easily. The next thing is that Indonesia's health system is allegedly collapsing, or close to collapsing, excuse me, due to COVID. And I promise this is one of the final things on COVID I'll do. It's just because, you know, Indonesia haven't reported on it in a while. Look, if the health, they've been saying that for a while now, and I'll be honest with you, some cases I've heard it actually collapsing in different countries, you know, certain health systems, other countries not, right? Again, we have to be vigilant of the potential fear factor of the media, or the almost guaranteed fear factor. It's just a matter of in which parts are they, you know, sandwiching that in there into certain stories, if you will, right? So again, unless we're on the ground, we're not going to know. The next thing is that the FDA has officially added heart inflammation warning to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. I would imagine this has to do with the CDC's emergency meeting of heart inflammations between males, specifically in the ages of 16 and 24, if I'm not mistaken. That's the range. And I would imagine maybe this is what they decided, what the committee decided. With that being said, it's still pretty vague. I mean, and I'll be honest with you folks, I have a gut feeling there's going to be a lot of things coming out over the next couple years about, you know, covered up side effects of the vaccine, just so that the narrative does not get squashed under the guise of the establishment, right? Pretty simple. Very similar to, like, you know, the I guess without getting too controversial, the Syria gas attack, or like the lab leak theory, right? It comes out, or the Russians paying militants to attack U.S. Soldiers in Afghanistan, paying bounties, right? Look, we'll find out eventually, I hope, right? There's a lot of things that the public has not been privy to, not just with COVID, but in general, about, you know, being lied to in order to push a certain narrative, just like the alleged OPCW cover-up of the Syria gas attack. That was covered up because it would push a Russian narrative. So instead of telling the truth, because it would push a, quote, Russian narrative, they cover it up, right? So again, not to jump all over the place, but I feel like this is the same thing here. We're seeing lots of side effects on social media and things like that, right? And again, I got to be careful with what I say, because this does go on YouTube, but, you know, we see these things, and I'm certain it's being downplayed in many areas, right? And I got to be careful with my words. But the next thing is that a helicopter carrying Colombia's president was shot at while flying. It was also carrying Colombia's defense minister, Colombia's interior minister, and a governor of a region in Colombia. Yeah, no, that's pretty big news. I mean, you got, who knows, a cartel, militia paid by some outside source or intelligence agency. I mean, you take shots at a country's leader's helicopter. I mean, Christ, you're asking for something, right? With that being said, though, it's not as, you know, I guess you could say, I would dare to argue it's a little bit easier to get away with things in Latin America or in Colombia in this particular case than it is within Europe or the West, right? I mean, it does happen, don't get me wrong, but Jesus, you're taking a shot. Like, first off, let me just say, if you're getting paid as a, you know, a mercenary or what have you, if this is what you do for a living, which is do risky stuff to high-level officials around the world, okay, so be it. That's the life you chose. Again, I'm not condoning that, but, you know, you better, but let's be real here. If you're a mercenary and you got paid to shoot at the Colombia president's helicopter, oh man, you better have gotten paid some good money. Again, I'm not saying I'm for this, but let's be real too. You better have been paid pretty good, right? The next thing is that there was something called a dragon man skull that was discovered in China, which scientists are awing at, saying that it could be a new branch of the human species we never knew of. Now, again, this is kind of where our main episodes and the news episodes kind of conflate and intertwine. Publicly, sure. Secretly, oh, come on. They've known. So that's just my perspective, right? The next thing is that YouTube shut down yin yang videos pushing human rights groups to seek backup. Now, okay, this is a little bit more complicated than black and white, if you will. Now, there's a human rights activist running the show, basically running this particular show that he puts on YouTube out of Kazakhstan, from my understanding. And he constantly interviews people who claim they have been, you know, they've been inside these Uyghur internment camps in China that the CCP is allegedly doing, and they keep calling it genocide. And YouTube basically said to this gentleman, literally through the CCP, which contacted the Kazakhstan government, which pressured this individual, which just goes to show you, by the way, that's how much of an impact this guy's making, just doing YouTube videos. It shows you the power of people nowadays, right? Which is, I guess, a good thing in certain aspects, if you will. But he was literally told, stop using the word genocide and YouTube will let your videos back up. So again, the censorship, the influence of an asymmetrical perspective of not just Western influence, but CCP influence, right? I don't want to say Chinese because I don't want to, imply the Chinese people, but you folks know what I mean, right? So again, it's not for me to say what's right or wrong in this case, but I can report it to the best of my ability, and it's unfortunate when we see these things, right? Because it does strike close to home, I'll admit. I still must be honest with you, although we're slowly moving away from, from YouTube in the sense of we're creating alternative platforms and different resources and areas. I would always love to be on YouTube, but it hits close to home because I wake up every morning being worried that, YouTube is just going to say, hey, Gen Z's channel's gone, right? But again, that's why we got the Patreon, the Dropbox, the audio side of stuff, but we'll build on that as we go. The next thing is that Biden said that Afghans must decide their own future. Look, this is, again, I'm not going to touch on this for too long at all, because it comes down to the mentality of, the nationalistic mentality, where it's more about, okay, this is their problem, this is not our issue. Yes, we shouldn't have been in there, but many people arguing that this is Afghanistan's problem are the same people that argued against the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. With that being said, many people's views have evolved or their minds have changed, so I'm not trying to defend all of them and encompass them in one big blanket metaphorically, but again, it comes down to just a personal philosophical and political perspective. We could argue very strongly philosophically, because again, it's a matter of, should we, as a world power, go back? Not just America, but Europe, Canada, many other countries. Should we go back and help out because the Taliban is now conquering areas that U.S. contractors or U.S. military soldiers used to have a very strong holding in? Or is it their problem now? Simple, right? The next thing is that John McAfee, and again, McAfee or McAfee, yeah, his widow blamed the U.S. government for his death. Okay, I just want to say, I'm not going to cover this too much because, again, I got to be careful with what I say on YouTube, but also, members, trust me, we got an episode coming in the next 48 hours that ties in a lot of this. So, that in addition to another one. But anyways, the next thing is that the UK health chief was caught in a physical embrace that broke all the rules that he set out. Apparently he was hugging or kissing another government official, and people are now calling for him to resign. Look, with that being said, people are fed up. There's a massive protest going on in London, by the way, right now. The BBC, from my understanding, is not reporting it, and I've been told by some very reliable friends of mine who live in the UK, multiple people that don't even know each other, as a matter of fact, which I tend to, rely on more often than is if they knew each other, are saying, Dave, there have been mass protests outside the BBC headquarters and for weeks, and the BBC hasn't reported on it. Folks, whether or not the mass consciousness or people will make a difference time will tell. But people are pissed, I must admit. Is it enough people to make a legitimate change? It's tough to say at this moment, in my opinion, but it just goes to show you. The next thing is that Russia launched Mediterranean drills amid their, recent rift with the UK. They're basically, long story short, I read the article on this, they're flaunting their jets in the Mediterranean. They're, bringing out some of their more sophisticated jets as a show of force in the Mediterranean to kind of say to the UK, hey, don't mess with us, so to speak. So again, to each their own, I guess. The next thing is, well, again, I shouldn't just dismiss it as easily as that, but at the same time, we can extrapolate all we want. We have to see what the next moves are. This is a chess game. We got to analyze it like a chess game, or at least along the lines of that, in my opinion. The next thing is that Germany has now officially banned the Hamas flag and PKK symbols under their new terror laws and rules. Look, again, folks, as I say, their country, they could do what they want. Some people may not like that. Many people will. So it is what it is. What can I say, right? The next thing is that there has been a major rise, or significant increase, if you will, in kidnappings and abductions in Nigeria. Again, we're going to tie this into some members' episodes because I would love to talk about this publicly, but unfortunately, because of the censorship these days, I cannot. So I don't see that as a coincidence. That's all I'm going to say on that. The next thing is that 18 bodies have been found after a cartel battle in Mexico, specifically with the Zacatecas state. Or within that state. Hopefully I didn't butcher the name of the state. Please forgive me. Okay, look, folks, I'll be straight with you in this particular case. When you have dead bodies and it's basically confirmed, presuming this is true, confirmed it was a cartel battle. Look, I'll be really real with you guys here. If you're in a cartel, you know what you signed up for. Let's be real, right? And if you're scared or what have you, look, you got to be a man in this particular case. I'm not trying to be all Mr. Alpha or whatever. I'm just saying when you get into organized crime of any kind, you know what you're signing up for. You know the risks. Therefore, if you get caught, you can't complain, because who are you going to complain to? Or if you die, you know what I mean? And look, I'll be honest with you folks. I've heard a lot of stories of a lot of individuals getting away with, being a drug dealer for 5, 10, 15 years and getting high up and then getting out in a clean way. And that's sometimes hard to do. And I've heard other people, 6 months into what they call the quote unquote business of, cartels and things like that, they're dead. So again, you know what you signed up for. I don't know what else I could say at that point. Now, again, this is assuming this was a full-on cartel member fight. There were no innocents. Let me make that clear. The next thing is that a car bomb wounded at least 13 UN peacekeepers in Mali. Yeah, again, this is just gonna keep going, this whole thing. So it's so unfortunate, but the Taliban has said that it has the right to react if U.S. troops or if some U.S. troops stay in Afghanistan. Now, here's the problem with that. This is what's iffy. U.S. troops as in the U.S. military or U.S. military contractors, because for a quick refresh, for those who don't know or for those who haven't, for those who are new or who missed some of the Kraken episodes from a couple months ago, the contracts that are being given out, folks, okay, are by the Pentagon to the military contractors are literally stat for stat, at least at the time that I reported on it, they're replacing the U.S. soldiers. So yes, is the U.S. Army leaving Afghanistan? Yeah, but it's being replaced with contractors, and in some cases with more high-tech contractors. So again, what is the Taliban referring to here, right? Are they saying just in general, if we see Americans or we see, Western-looking soldiers, that's it, we're shooting? So again, it's a genuine question. So the next thing is that a 2018 report warned of a major error in the initial design of the Florida building. I'm going to save this for the members episode. There's a lot of iffy things there. Allegedly, some of this report was fabricated and things like that, so it's hard to say. The next thing is that a major witness in the U.S. DOJ or Department of Justice's case against Julian Assange has admitted to fabricating key accusations in the indictment against Assange. Folks, that's big. That's big. Now, again, will any mainstream media outlet report on this? Probably not. In other words, they made up a bunch of accusations in order to force Britain to arrest him and all that stuff, right? So, I mean, holy cow, right? The next thing is that 15 German soldiers have reportedly been wounded, and some very severely, after an IED attack on a military convoy in Mali. Again, right? So it's unfortunate. And there was also a stabbing attack in Germany that occurred by a 24-year-old, as this 24-year-old who stabbed stabbed a handful of people, 6 of them injured, 3 dead, and allegedly, according to videos, eyewitness accounts, he yelled Allahu Akbar while doing it. Again, if this is a case of radical terrorism, I'm not going to blame any culture, religion, if you will, but the individual. With that being said, there's a big debate as to, if certain religions foster a certain type of extremism. That's not for me to say. I am not a scholar on the I don't have any merit in that area. I have many friends who are Christian, many friends who are Muslim, things like that. I don't think we should equate that to anything, and I want to make it very clear. The bodies that are being found in Canada in the First Nations residential schools, allegedly being buried and by the Catholic Church and things like that. Again, there's going to be problems on every culture, every side, regardless of religion, right? With that being said, there's obviously some cultures, depending on the time and era that we're in, that are more problematic than others, but, And the final thing is that a man jumped from a moving plane at LA International Airport after attempting to access the plane's cockpit. I mean, I don't know. He tried to get in to fly it. I mean, what the hell? And then just a random guy. And then obviously the flight attendants probably definitely said, no, sir, you can't. And then he tried to jump off the thing? I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you. But anyways, folks, hope you're all having a great weekend so far. We got a public episode coming out tomorrow, in addition to some more members episodes. And we will catch all of you very, very soon. Cheers.